Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
And good morning, Cayman. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orit Connor this morning. It's a wonderful and beautiful Friday morning here in the Cayman Islands as you make your morning drive into your office space or you're at home listening to us. We want to invite you to give us a call with our topics of discussions this morning, which will surround our opposition member, Mr. Alva Saku. He's also our MLA for District of Newlands. Mr. Saku, thank you so much for being here with us this morning, this Friday morning, to talk about some of the things that are happening. And as far as the Legislative Assembly is coming, the upcoming sitting, we'll be talking about that, as well as the motorsports development project that you've been actively involved in, and of course, government's tourism plan. We want to talk about that. There's a lot of talk about what's happening with tourism, one of our main industries here in the Cayman Islands. So we really, really want to talk about that. Again, we want to invite our listeners to join us by calling 1-800-534-8255 anytime within the next hour and a half here on the show. We are a little bit late starting off this morning because of some technical difficulties, but we certainly appreciate your patience with us this morning. Again, Mr. Saku, thank you so much for being here with us. So there's an upcoming sitting of the Legislative Assembly. Mm-hmm. And as a member of the opposition, an MLA, you will be bringing some bills to the floor. Can you discuss with us exactly what your plans are there?
Great. And thank you for having me. And just want to say good morning to the listening public. And it's a pleasure to be here again. I don't think you and I have ever sat here on this show.
No,
so it's the first for us. But yes, the LA is meeting mid-March. And so far, the agenda doesn't seem too heavy. I've only been notified of one government bill so far that's going to be debated, which is something that I'm hoping I can support, which is they're going to make changes to the trade and business law and easing some of the restrictions on Caymanians to make it easier for Caymanians to apply for trade and business licenses. So that is something that I haven't looked at the detail of the bill, but the effort I would support because I do get the complaints from Caymanians about the excess red tape that they have to deal with now.
Will there be a particular focus, do you know, on small and micro businesses?
I think it's more focused on Caymanians.
Okay.
Which is, we've had the argument recently that, we've stopped, it's no longer a right, and it's now a privilege to get a trade and business license. And I think this might be a retrograde step in going back a little bit and easing up some of the restrictions that were imposed recently. So it's a little weird because the same not the same administration, but the same PPM-led government is making these changes. They're undoing changes that they made in the last administration, but
it's okay. Change is good, and when something doesn't work, then it's necessary to make change for improvement and betterment.
Exactly, and it's good to see that people aren't so fixed in their thinking that we can't change things, even if we did it. It may not be working in the best interest of everyone, so make changes. So that's.
I have the privilege of working in the same environment or same space as members of the staff of Department of Commerce and Investment, and I have to say that they have a great team working there. It's predominantly female, but those ladies who've come from customs and police and various other industries are now in there, and they're doing a really, really awesome job, and so is Minister Hugh and his ministry staff as well. So I can see the direction that they're trying to go in, and that's a good thing that you're going to support. I think.
Like I said, I haven't looked at the bill in detail yet, but I received it by email this week, so I'm going to sit down this weekend now and read through it and make sure that I can support the changes, but in addition to that, see if there anything else, any other changes that I could probably suggest
Right.
as part of that process, and make it even better. So I managed to do that when we made some changes in the past, where during committee stage, I actually moved an amendment asking for an exemption from having a trade and business license if you're a artist, Caymanian artist.
Okay.
That actually was passed. So I'm not sure if many people are aware of that, but if you're an artist,
Probably not.
musician, whatever, and you're
Right.
producing your material, your media for sale, but it's you're doing it personally, not through another company and so on, you can actually be exempt from having a trade and business license.
And that's a wonderful break for our artists who, you always hear the saying struggling artists.
Yeah, yeah.
And that transcends across the globe, I think. So that's a wonderful thing that, and I'm sure our listening public, many people probably didn't know that. So that's
because
great.
well, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really pay close attention to, some of the stuff that goes on in the LA.
Yeah.
But it's important that people do tune in and listen
I
and
agree.
watch as much as they can, because
agree.
That is the house of democracy in this country. That's where everything is decided.
That's where the wheels are rolling. That's where they're moving. So you're planning on bringing a motion?
I have one so far that I've completed.
Okay.
I'll probably bring more than one,
Okay.
but depending on the load that I see in there, because sometimes, we'll get to a point where we don't get to hear all the private members' motions because we've run out of time or so on. And there's only one day a week that's dedicated to private members' motions, and normally that gets deferred until the end. So to be fair to my opposition colleagues, I won't try to hog all the time. But there is one motion that I'm bringing, and I've talked about one previously that I will definitely bring, which is the asking government to start regulating animal breeders, to try to deal with the issue of not illegal breeding, but breeding that's done in a way that is not conducive to the good health of animals, and leading to some of the issues we have with strays. Try to bring more regulations, and ask government to make sure that if someone says they're breeding animals for a living, that they're regulated, that there are rules that they follow, that they're properly caring for the animals. And also, if you're not, and you're importing animals, if you're not a breeder but you're importing animals, maybe make it mandatory that they're spayed and neutered before they come in, because that's another issue where people bring animals in, they have puppies or kittens, and they end up a problem later on because they don't always stay with the owner. So bringing more regulation around that whole topic.
Do you have to have a business license to be a breeder?
I would assume so. I know there's some people who do it. It's kind of like a hobby, and I don't think they've gone to that length of applying for a trade and business license and so on. Okay. But if we're, and I'm not saying that we should ban it and not allow it,
right?
But we have to be careful now, because I was speaking to a gentleman this weekend who, just walking home, was attacked. Well, I think it was in the news.
Yeah.
He was attacked by a pit bull, and he was showing me the bite marks, and he actually had to kill the animal himself.
Oh, wow.
While it was attacking him. And when you hear that story in the news, you don't actually get the full effect of what he went through.
Could have been a child.
But it could have been a child, but on top of that, he was in fear for his life. He thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And one last effort to save himself, he pulled a knife out of his pocket and killed the dog, which we don't want stuff like that to happen.
No.
So
that's traumatic for all involved. But
that is one motion. And then I've just finished drafting this, and I've circulated it to my opposition colleagues, asking government to conduct a private independent study of the factors affecting the social mobility of Caymanians. Now, it sounds like a lot, and it probably is, but the last time we've actually conducted any such study, I think, was in 2006, the Yolanda Ford report. And I don't think we've done anything as comprehensive as that since. So, and this is all against the backdrop of, continued development in Cayman. We're talking about improving education, improving tourism, improving financial services, encouraging development. We see new hotels going on every day. But how much have we done to ascertain what the barriers to development of our people are. And I'm talking about economic, education, social. So when you talk about social mobility, you talk about someone's ability to move up or down, hopefully up, through the social stratification of the population. You don't want it to become the case where someone who's born into a poor family, I'll be blunt, to remain there for the rest of their life. You want to make sure that you're putting things in place that will allow them the opportunities to move up. Each generation should do better than the last. And this report would then be used to guide government policy. So if we're starting to embark on these major development initiatives, and we're starting to craft plans now, I know there's going to be a tourism plan. Part of that plan has to be how do we develop our people as well. And the only way that you're going to get that done and accomplish that is to know where you're starting from. So what is the current state of affairs for our people, and what do we need to do? Maybe the report may come back and say everything is great, but if it comes back and says, well, these are the concerns, these are the root causes, and this is what needs to be done to improve on this, then that needs to be incorporated in whatever plans we have to develop this country. Because I'm a firm believer in that, as we develop the country, we have to develop the people. And I don't think we've done that at the level that we should have for forever.
We're going to stick a pin there, Mr. Saku. We're going to take a break here on For the Record. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes. And welcome back to our listeners this morning. Donna Bush here in for Mr. Orrit Connor, who has a few days off. So I'll be with you over the next week. If you're just tuning in, we'd like to say a warm Cayman welcome to you for tuning in, and hoping that you'll give us a call with any comments or questions that you may have for our guest this morning. The number to call is 1-800-534-8255. With us in studio this morning, we have Newlands MLA, Mr. Alva Saku, who is also a member of the opposition in our Legislative Assembly. When we went to our break, Mr. Saku, we were talking about a motion that you intend on bringing before the Legislative Assembly in its next sitting in March. This one particularly relates to social mobility, the social mobility of Caymanians. So let's continue our conversation on that topic for our listeners out there. And,
as I said, this is against the backdrop of not having done a similar comprehensive study in quite some time, since 2006. So what the end result of that is that when us legislators go into the LA to make policy, to make laws, we're not using current data with regard to the current social condition of Caymanians to help us make decisions. And the government, I think, would benefit greatly from this. And we were talking during the break, and some people may say, well, there was a report. Why do we need to spend money doing another report? But that was 2006. I know that some of the recommendations were implemented, and I actually thank the Attorney General for bringing this report to the LA. He tabled it because it was a very important. The Yolanda Ford report was a very important report. We didn't follow all of the suggestions, and I don't have it in front of me, but I can remember some of the concerns of that report were with the way the education system was set up, where we were involved in social promotion in schools rather than advancing people based on ability and what they'd learn. We were doing it based on age. So one of the things that it pointed out was that when you go through a school system that has conditioned you to think that way, when you get into the workforce, you continue to do the same thing. So it led to these issues where we hear it every day now, that Caymanians have this mentality where, we want it because we're Caymanian. The report was going at that belief and saying, this is where it stemmed from. It started somewhere. And what we have to do, we had to change the system to where you advance based on achievement, and that then translates into your working career. But it went much deeper into looking at the causes of criminality, and I think everybody can relate to this one, because what we have now and we see it on a daily basis. We read the news, we listen to the reports. Is the criminality is taking over. We have a lot of young Caymanians especially, and don't let anyone fool you when they say that there are foreigners here doing committing all the crimes. When you visit Northwood Prison, you see the true effect of that. The prison is full, and it's full of Caymanians. So we're at a stage where we went from when the prison first opened, we had less than 20 prisoners to over 400, or around about 400, and majority of those are young Caymanian men. You know, that tells you what has happened socially here. And I'm not making excuses for anyone who has broken the law or ended up in prison. However, things don't just happen on their own. I believe in cause and effect. And a lot of what is leading our young people to criminality and choosing that way of life is, I think a lot of them are finding themselves in a position where they don't know how to function otherwise. They really can't go out and compete in the workforce because they weren't prepared. They don't really have the social skills to survive in everyday society. They're having trouble feeding their families, taking care of their kids. We have a lot of single mothers. All of these social issues, are leading to bigger issues. And I think if we don't take a step like this and wholeheartedly say, look, let's really look at this from a holistic point of view. Let's really look at the root cause of these issues and try to build the solutions for those into what we're doing as a government, in our policies, in our laws. Then it's only going to get worse. The level of drug use among young people today is frightening. When we visited the schools, the opposition, we did a tour of most of the schools in the Cayman Islands, the public schools. And at a number of those schools, I would say and I'm talking age group of 5, 6, 7-year-olds, I would say, how many of you know someone who uses drugs? And majority, at like 90% raise their hand.
Wow.
And that is scary because when I was at that age, I didn't know anyone who used drugs, So it's becoming more and more prevalent.
Well, you probably did. You just didn't know that they used it.
Well, true. And I wasn't aware of it.
You weren't directly
I wasn't
aware
of it. So the acceptance of drug use, alcohol abuse, is leading to other issues, and we see it. I was reading a report the other day that came from Jamaica, but Jamaica is now seeing this issue, and I saw it in Chicago when I was there in university, where a lot of the guys who are involved in the gangs are giving the younger guys marijuana dipped in formaldehyde. I remember seeing that in Chicago. I knew someone who smoked it and ended up dead.
Wow.
Drove his car off a bridge. But what it does, it's a form of, it's like a home-based version of PCP. But it completely desensitizes you. It takes away any sort of judgment you may have. And what they do is they give it to these guys, smoke this and go kill this person. And people are using drugs now to infiltrate our young people and to get into their minds and control them. And that is an issue that we really need to take control of. We need to get real with this, because I see it happening here. I see some very young people involved in drugs now.
Some people may say the report is a great thing, but is there any country, any island that we may want to model the way that we deal with the social issues after? Because a lot of times we don't look at the countries that have the good stories to tell. I mean, let's face it. We'll always have a criminal element in our society. That's not going to go away anywhere in the world. I don't care where you are. However, to lessen and to help with the social issues, is there anywhere that we can model ourselves after in fighting and helping with the social issues and fighting criminality?
I think that there are countries that we can look to for at least a comparison to say, well, this is what they've done. I know Barbados, education-wise, have made some advances. and they're young people are renowned for being very bright and sought after when they leave high school. But I don't think anyone has gotten it right, perfect. And I think our circumstances here are so different. We're
the
so
dynamics
unique.
are, yes.
Yeah, because we have so many different nationalities living here, coming and going, because we have such a transient population as well, with people who come here to work on work permits and so on, that I think our circumstances are so unique that we need to really own it ourselves and come up with our own solutions. It's good to look at other countries and see what they've done, but will that apply here? It's almost an experiment. But I encourage doing that because you learn, and whenever I travel, I learn from the countries I'm in. But I think our circumstances are so unique that it would be difficult to find one model that you could just put on top of us and say, okay, this will work. But we need to work on that, especially if we're going to continue developing, which I don't see any sign of that slowing down, which is a good thing for the economy. But again, we get into situations where, who's it benefiting? We were building all these new buildings and developments, but are the Caymanians benefiting? And that's the bottom line question. And if they're not, why not? And we need to look at that. And we need to open up some controversial subjects. We need to look at racism. Does it still exist here? In my opinion, it does. It does. But, we need to get out of this mindset of sweeping everything under the rug and hoping it'll go away. We need to face these things and deal with them. It's sad, but, small country like Cayman with such a close-knit community. But we do have these issues. We still have issues with child abuse, with child sexual abuse, which rears its head very often now. We have issues with violence, with gangs. All these things, we can't just accept them as this is the way it is now. I really believe that as leaders, as representatives, we need to work together to tackle these things. And I'm hoping the government will accept this motion. I think it's not politically motivated. It's something that I've thought about for a long time, that, to say that this is what's needed. And I think that we can all support an effort like this, even if there's some cost attached, because the dividends that it'll pay later on are immeasurable. But it's timely now because the government is embarking on a lot of plans. They're putting things in place now that are going to affect us for the next 20, 30 years. So let's not do that again and leave the people out of it.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break here on For the Record with your Radio Cayman News. At this time, we'll be back in just a little bit. And welcome back to For the Record. If you're just joining us, I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orrit Connor, who's off this week and next week with you. We've been speaking with opposition member Mr. Alva Saku. He's also Newlands MLA. We're glad to have him in studio this morning. We've been discussing a motion that he intends on bringing to the next sitting of the Legislative Assembly, which is in mid-March. Just to wrap up on that particular subject, Mr. Saku, if you could just give us a synopsis of what you've been talking about and let us know as we end on that particular topic, what inspired you to actually bring this motion?
Sure. Well, as I was saying earlier, the motion is asking government to basically commission an independent study of the social condition of Caymanians, really, looking particularly at the social mobility and the factors affecting that. I had an experience just after this election when I attended a number of graduations, actually. And I was in this one in particular, I was at the Savannah primary graduation. And I remember sitting there and looking at all those kids, and this, they're still young, and they were all singing, they were all reading, they were all performing very well at their graduation, giving little speeches. And I remember looking at them and thinking, I don't see one bad, if you want to say bad child in this whole bunch of students. I'm looking at them, they're all innocent, and they all have a bright future ahead of them. And then I started thinking, but what would I be thinking 10 years from now when I look at the same group? And normally the story is much different. You find that some would have excelled in academics, gone on and gotten educated, starting families or whatever it is that they're doing, and being productive members of society. And then there are those who are going to be northward. There are those who may have met some other unfortunate circumstances. Some may have been gotten involved in drugs, crime. We need to understand, once they get past that age of innocence, what is it that's leading them down these different paths? Because they're all coming from the same background. They all went to the same primary school, had the same education, same teachers, live in the same communities. So what is it that separates them as they get older? And I think if we start to understand that dynamic and build the solutions to that into what we're doing as a government, as a country, then we won't fix it all, we won't cure it all, but we will definitely make a big impact on the future potential of our young people. And that's what this motion is about. Okay. It's basically, build them into the future as well, into the plan for the future. Let's not just build buildings, let's build people.
Well, this is a subject that it's near and dear to my heart, because as you and I'm sure many people out in the listening public, we know some of the answers to the problems. We may not necessarily want to speak about it publicly, but these are conversations, hard conversations we need to begin having for everybody to benefit, because down the road, they always say, if it's not hitting the politician, or it's not hitting the people who are in a position to make a difference, if crime is, they're not being attacked, or their homes not being burglarized, or they're not being robbed, and it's not hitting home, they're not going to do anything about it. And we want to change people's perception and that thought process, and do something about it. Before it hits home, because it all affects us. Crime is something that affects us on every level, and of course that's just one social aspect that we're discussing today. But moving on, we want to talk a little bit about the motorsports development here in Cayman. There's been, when we speak of motorsports, I think you're probably talking about motorcycles as well as the cars.
Well, everything on wheels.
Yes. So if we could segue into that would be great. What's your involvement in motorsports development here?
Well, I won't take credit for this. I'm going to actually give credit to someone who likes to work in the background but is very positive in helping this effort, is Mr. Woody Foster. Okay. Woody raised the issue with me. Well, we all raised the issue of the motorcycles on the road, and the recent ride out, and the criticisms of that, and criticisms of the young people who are involved. I'm not making excuses for anyone. Some of them were were very, very out of line. But you have to start to think in the way our young people think, to understand some of this stuff. As someone who's older and supposed to be mature now and moved on in life, it's hard for some of us to look back and say, well, when we were young, we were just like that. But motorcycle riding has become a sport internationally, and these guys are actually very skilled, very gifted. But what they're doing is they're expressing that talent in the wrong place. Yes. And it's becoming dangerous. We've seen accidents happen, and we've seen deaths happen because of reckless driving and driving and riding. But what we're trying to do is provide a safe area for them to be able to do this and continue to improve themselves and their skill level. So the motorsports, the Hot Rod Association, we've always heard about the talks about this track that they want to build. They have a plan. We've been meeting with them. We've gotten a group of bikers together now. They're forming an association. We're helping them with that, which will have rules, and they will be part of this effort. So they're going to have, the usual quarter mile for drag racing. They will have a circuit track for rally cars, but they've added now to the plan a pad for stunt riders. So the guys that you see doing the wheelers and all that stuff on the street, we're providing a place for them, and it's a huge area within this plan. And they're now coming under the umbrella of the Hot Rod Association, where they will be sit on the board of directors and be involved in this project going forward. The land is identified. They've gotten they're working on the lease now, and all we need now is for the community to get behind this, and support it. And I'm talking not just moral support, but
Right.
financial support,
Okay.
and the government as well. There have been a lot of these guys. When I sit down and talk to them, they're so disappointed because they've had so many promises made to them by different politicians, different people in the community,
Right.
but nothing has happened. And they get frustrated to the point where they just said, "Well, I'm going to go ride and do whatever I have to
Of
do."
course.
I don't want to see that continue. But the disappointment has built to a point where we were losing all hope that we would ever make a dent in this. But we actually had a meeting yesterday in the evening, and we got everybody together, and we're ready to move forward now. The plans are pretty much drafted. Need to still go through planning for some stuff, but we're ready to start. And as early as the end of March, we'd like to be doing some construction at that site.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
yeah, we're making a lot of progress.
So if we have a listener out there, or two, or more than that, that's interested in helping. Who can they contact, and what are some of the ways that you said financial assistance is needed? What ways can they help financially? And who do they get in touch with?
Well, they can get in touch with myself. Kenneth Bryan is also involved. And I can give my number, 925-2582, or alva.saku@gmail.com. I'll give Kenneth's number. Hope he doesn't mind.
I think
look
this
it
is
up
a
here.
really good thing. I mean, I'm not really familiar too much with motorsports in Cayman. I had a conversation with a young man a few years back, and I think I may have shared that with you, who was part of riding and what have you. But I can say, as a motorist on the road myself, since the incident with police and some riders a few months back. It is a few months because time is just really moving fast. I haven't seen any of these bikers on the road, doing their stunts and all that. So I think that may be a good sign that,
It is a good sign. The thing is, we met with the police, and the police have been working with us, which
Right.
is really good, because the police don't want to lock anyone up. They don't want to lock
Right.
these guys up, and give them criminal records.
I mean, really?
They prefer to work with them, and the
Yeah.
police have been providing a location for them to go on the weekends. With the police are there making sure everything is done properly, that you don't have too many people showing up with unlicensed bikes and so on. But
Right.
those who if the bikes aren't licensed, they can truck them to the site and they ride. The police is there to supervise. So I am grateful to the police for doing that. They didn't have to. They could have continued the policy of chase and lock up people, but they're not doing that. But this park, this development is much bigger than because I know some people will say, well, this doesn't benefit me. I don't race, I don't ride. But this is a development that could propel the Cayman Islands into motorsports.
I was going to ask you about that, because Jamaica, neighboring Jamaica, is huge when it comes to racing. I mean, I'm sure racers from Cayman go there every year. Is this something that we have the potential of doing with
Very
this
much
park?
so. Yeah, because this park is being built according to international specs. This isn't just a Cayman-centric park. This is something that any rally car driver or quarter mile racer
Wow.
or biker would be able to work with, because this is what they're accustomed to in their home countries or elsewhere.
So we could be hosting regional events.
And there's a business plan that's already been drafted that we're finalizing now, that is linked to how much revenue this thing can make and how much we
great.
can put back into the economy.
Yeah.
We're talking about not only that, but the supporting industries that could develop around it. You're going to need mechanics. You're going to need the part suppliers. Government is going to make revenue from the customs duty for importing all this stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to have people coming here for competitions. So the tourism
Sports
dollar
tourism.
is
Yeah.
sports tourism. It's a huge potential, and other countries benefit greatly by this. I mean, there are millions of dollars a year being spent on these sports. All it takes now is for us to get this done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lobby the government for some financial support. I don't think that there'll be too much of an issue with that.
Okay, that's great.
Hopefully that will be a smooth conversation. But we will need private sector. And the thing is, for the private sector individuals who may have the ability to support this financially, don't just think that it's a charity that you're giving to. this is an investment as well, because there'll be advertising, marketing associated with this.
Right.
If you're you want your business promoted via this avenue, it's a marketing tool that you can use.
Right.
So yes, you're supporting the effort, you're supporting the bikers and the racers and so on, but you're also supporting your own business when you do
Your
this.
signage is out there continually on those tracks.
So there's a huge potential here to create and diversify this a new sort of revenue stream for the government,
Right.
also for private individuals. And I tell you what, anyone that's business minded should really look at this, because it's going to provide some benefits that didn't exist in the Cayman Islands before. So get in early.
That's great.
It's my sales pitch.
So we encourage you to get in touch with MLAs Kenneth Bryan or Mr. Alvar Saku via email or phone numbers, so that you can get involved. If you're out there listening, or you know somebody who may be interested, has a company that can lend some financial support to this very worthy cause and motorsports development here on the island, that would be just great.
And
All right.
I'll give Kenneth's number real quick, 926-0005.
All right, that's 926-0005, Mr. Kenneth Bryan. We're going to take another break here on For the Record. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Please bear with us.
8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record with your host, Orrit Connor.
And welcome back to For the Record. I'm Donna Bush, in for Mr. Orrit Connor. We will be ending the show a little early today at 9 o'clock. So if you want to give us a call to ask Mr. Alvar Saku, our guest in the studio today. He's the Newlands MLA and opposition member. We're discussing a number of issues here. If you have a question or comment for him, please do give us a call at that number just given out, 1-800-534-8255, as we spend our last 30 minutes here discussing some issues with you. When we went to the break, we were talking about motorsports development here in the Cayman Islands. And if you're just joining us, basically there's going to be an association formed. They're making great strides in actually developing and constructing a park that will be the home to racing of all vehicles, particularly cars and motorcycles. So you were before we went to the break, Mr. Saku, you were talking about the community involvement and the private sector involvement that you'd like to see, and how people out there, companies out there, can benefit greatly from being a part of the development of this particular park, which is another revenue stream, has great potential to be another revenue stream for the Cayman Islands. So let's just finish up our conversation on that for our listening public.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. This is the idea is that we would involve all the disciplines, right? So you're gonna have the as I said, the rally cars and so on, the bikes. I found out something interesting last night, which I didn't know. One of the guys who has been meeting with me, who's part of the bike group that we talk to regularly, is like the 13th fastest in the world on a super bike.
You're kidding.
Yeah, Caymanian, living right here, who gets his bike up to 200 miles an hour, which is I can't even imagine being on a bike and going that fast, right? But when this guy's sitting next to me, calm as ever. Quiet as ever.
Wow.
And you don't realize, well, you're like 13 in the world in terms
but
of
that's
what you've
us
done,
though, as a people. That's just we're very humble in that way. We don't want people to necessarily know,
and there's another guy in the group who's a professional rider who travels all the time, but it's like we don't realize the potential that this has, and
we don't recognize the people that are really doing great things.
But we what we need to do now is embrace this as a sport, and stop thinking of it as just a hobby, because there's a huge industry behind this now.
Yeah.
And this is a good opportunity for us, the Cayman Islands, to get in on it.
Right.
With the proper facilities and so on. I've looked at the business plan that was drafted, and this is self-sustaining. the amount of revenue that they predict that they can bring in just from putting on these shows.
Yeah.
This is a one-time investment, and then it'll be self-sustaining. So, but we need the startup money to get it going. And I'm going to speak to the Minister of Sports and ask her to really give it some consideration. I know that there's been some conversations taking place now, which are positive.
Right.
It seems that government will get on board. So and again, this is not being done as a political move to show up the government. I know that there's been disappointment with the last administration where some promises were made but they didn't come through. But let's just forget all that and move forward. This is so positive. I don't want them to spoil this with politics and blaming anyone and pointing fingers. Let's just get it done. It is so good for our young people, and we'll see the benefits immediately, right away.
Has any thought ever been given to, I know that we're making a cry out for persons to call or to get in contact with yourself or MLA Kenneth Bryan, to see how they can lend their support and help. Any consideration may be given to having some sort of a public meeting that some of these potential persons who may be interested can actually come out and hear more about the project and then, make.
Well, what I would suggest people do, and not just contact myself and Kenneth, but also the Hot Rod Association. We'll have the Bikers Association going very soon. We're trying to get the paperwork involved and getting that incorporated. But there will be, because I don't want to be the spokesman for it.
Right.
I'm just facilitating and assisting as much as I can. But what I will do, and I'm sorry I didn't bring all the contact details with me this morning, but there are presidents of these associations who you can speak to directly, and I'll prefer that if you're giving donations. I don't want to handle any money anyway. So,
all right, I believe we have a caller on the line. Welcome to For the Record. Do you have a question or comment for MLA Suku this morning?
Yes, Ma'am, I do. Good morning, Ms. Donna.
Good morning. How are you?
Do you hear me not go any further than Donna?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Soko.
How are you?
I am very thankful and highly blessed. I'm getting ready now. I'm getting prepared now to go to the expo today at the UCCI.
Oh, that's
Okay,
great.
good.
And listen to me now, Mr. Soko. I'm so glad that you gave as a reminder about the small businesses and the small businesses and the licensing process there. I'm so glad that you did that as a reminder, because I only listen to Radio Cayman, and I don't always get the newspapers every day. But I follow up when I get the papers or what I hear on Radio Cayman. Okay?
Okay.
And can I say something now about HSA? Can I?
It depends on what you want to talk about with the HSA. It's not one of our topics this morning, but go ahead, share it with us.
I want to give him something that he can work on.
Okay.
Okay.
Or some things. Number one, Mr. Suko, there is some up there that do not have their ID tags turned so you can see their faces.
Okay.
Even if it is people that cannot read, but they can see your face and kind of match it, then they know that that's who he is, right? That happens a lot. Pretty much every department that is now, but everyone still needs to be made aware that they need to turn it over. But I'm going to make one distinction. Those that have those long things around their neck with their IDs, that when they bend that they may turn over, that's a different situation altogether.
Okay.
I'm talking about those that got the little short one that they're clipped on.
I know which ones.
I think those folks, if they're turned around, they're intentionally turned around.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to go ahead with your next point?
I kind of missed it now. Listen to me now. I did say about that I'm getting ready to go. I'm prepared to go up to the expo.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. About the tourism now. About the tourism. That's the word that I love to hear because it makes me smile. Okay? When I hear the other word, they sound so much like hospital. Oh, it makes me shiver.
Hospitality. We need you to get to your point, ma'am. Unfortunately, we're going to be ending the show a little bit early this morning, so we want to get out as much as we can.
Yes, I understand that.
Thank
I
you so
understood
much.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, let me try to get it as short as possible. Okay, I do have a offer of being in a gift shop in the tourism. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Suko, now this would mean that I wouldn't have to be bothered then with a license?
Are you producing the items that you sell yourself?
Yes, some of them.
And that's a little gray area, because the way that amendment was moved, it was anyone who is producing art or music or whatever, or literature, whatever it was, as an artist, they're allowed to sell their whatever they produce without requiring a business license. Now, if you're selling other things, then that's a gray area, because you would still need a trade and business license for that. This is only for the stuff that you produce yourself personally.
Yeah,
But
that she makes.
look at now, then. I understand that. And thanks for that explanation.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is now, okay, that I can't remember the word I should say. That have given me this offer. They would have their things that they would have there for sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I could, because I do the silver touch. I'm not afraid to say that.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
a
okay.
thatcher.
Okay, well, then if you're in an arrangement with them, a business arrangement, then you could sell them the stuff that you produce through Silver Touch without needing a trade and business license.
Yeah.
So by using Silver Touch, yeah.
Maybe you can give her your number and
Yeah.
have her call you so you could
Call
talk.
me so we can talk about it some more. 925-2582.
2525
82.
82.
Uh-huh.
And can you give me Mr. Brian's again, please?
Let's see. I'd
Can
close
it
my phone.
926 something?
0005.
That's 3 zeros and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, and you have a good one.
Okay.
Have
no
a wonderful
problem.
day, caller. Thank you so much for calling us. Okay, so we'll just continue our conversation. We have like less than 20 minutes to finish up what we were talking. All right. Okay, so we're going to go to a break right now on For the Record, and we'll be back to continue our conversation and wrap up with Mr. Suku. And welcome back to For the Record. As we wrap up here this Friday morning, I'm Donna Bush, in for Mr. Orrit Connor, if you're just joining us. We have MLA for Newlands, Mr. Alva Saku, and also opposition member with us this morning. We've discussed his motion that he'll be bringing in the upcoming sitting of the Legislative Assembly. We're currently talking about or wrapping up our discussions here on the Motorsports Development Project. If we could just wrap up our information for those who may be just tuning in, Mr. Saku, that would be great.
Sure. Well, just to recap, we're very close now to, I would say, breaking ground with the project. All the different associations have come together. They're working together now and supporting the effort. But they do need financial support. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's an expensive project. The tracks themselves don't have to go through planning, because they're roads that they're building, basically roads, but everything else. The parking, all that stuff, the whatever buildings that they have to put there. So all that is going to take time and money, and a real effort. They don't want to get started down the road and then have to stop.
Right.
They want to keep this going and get it completed. They're approaching it in phases. What I would like to do maybe is I'm planning a public meeting probably later on in March. I will invite them all to come to that meeting so that people can actually hear what the plan is from them,
Right.
and ask questions and so on. But it's very positive. It's done a lot to boost the morale of the bikers, who I know have sort of taken on the impression that we're looking down on them, we're fighting against them. But these are our young Caymanian guys who are very skilled and talented. We just want them to direct that energy in a more positive way.
Right.
And they're all on board with doing that. That's the thing. People think that they don't want to, but they do.
I mean, these guys invest a lot of money and time.
Listen, they spend a lot of money on those bikes.
They do, and the cars.
And I'd hate to think that it's just a hobby.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a future in it for them. And again, we talk about we all can't be doctors and lawyers. There are careers in motorsports.
Yeah.
Whether you're
very competitive industry.
Yeah, whether you're on the bike or you're fixing a bike, and if you're doing something that you love, then you're not really working, and that's how I look at it. So I want to encourage that. We always talk about it, tell our kids that, you got to find work that you love and things that you want to do. So this is one of them. A lot of our young people will also get attracted to this.
Yes.
Once it's up and running and they see the potential, they will get involved.
And I've heard of these events, and this is just on a local level, draws huge crowds on the weekends. You hear people, you ask them where they're going on a Sunday, and they go, "Oh, we're going to the track," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. It's big, particularly for a younger segment of the population. So, okay, well, we look forward to hearing more about the meeting and so that potential sponsors and people who should get involved in this project from a public relations perspective and marketing perspective, and also to just do good. So we'll look forward to that information in the coming weeks, and so we hear more about the meeting and where it's going to be held and that sort of stuff. But just to wrap up, we only have a few more minutes. I know that you wanted to touch on government's tourism plan.
Yes. I attended the meeting in Bordentown Wednesday night. I really want to thank Minister Colonel for coming to Bordentown and taking the time. He not only did that, he met with the opposition prior to that and presented the plan. And I've seen changes made between our initial meeting and the meeting Wednesday night, which means he listened to some of the concerns and incorporated those into the plan. So I was very encouraged by that, and I encourage a lot of Bordentowners to show up at that meeting because this is a unique opportunity that we have now. He didn't present a plan. He presented the framework for the plan.
Okay.
And what they're asking for is for the public to feedback and say, this is how we should want this plan to look. So the future of tourism in Bordentown depends on what is produced. This is the time now for everybody to get involved, give their feedback, give their input, tell the ministry how you want tourism to be developed in your district. If you don't do that, then they're going to have to make some broad assumptions and assume this is what you want. And
then you have no place to complain.
yeah, then you can't complain.
Exactly.
So, I again, everything isn't politics. I always said I will support the things that this country needs, and this is one of the things that I have been preaching about for so long, that, I support this effort. Now, I did say to the minister that, that doesn't mean we're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. We may have some disagreement over how the final product looks, but at least we are working together to get there. And I was very encouraged that he came to Bordentown and did this, and he's going through this public consultation process. It shows that they're serious about getting the feedback. And, for all the people who may not think that there's a future in tourism, I said it the other night at the meeting, with all the threats on our financial services, it's not all doom and gloom, but we're under threat. We need to start boosting up all the areas, all the industries, so that we don't have all our eggs in one basket. And this is one way of doing it, is by creating this plan that will take us into the future for tourism. Bordentown has untapped potential for tourism.
Can you share with us maybe what one of your suggestions or recommendations, or maybe one of the more popular ones that you may be in that plan eventually? Well,
what I would like to see, and I'm thinking from the point of view of a young Caymanian who may have inherited some land in Bordentown but doesn't have the means to develop it. Let's provide the concessions to the small developers. The same maybe do for the big hotel developers. Let's give these tourism ambassadors and developers the concessions that they need to get their projects off the ground, but also provide the financing. It's very hard in Cayman nowadays, a young Caymanian not too much experience. You might not have a lot of capital to your name, but walk into a bank and say I need a loan to start a business. It's very hard. CIDB is there. That is what it was created for. That was the purpose. So start funding CIDB so it can actually give business loans. Don't just hand the money out. Make sure there's a concrete plan behind it. But at the very least, give young Caymanians the opportunity to invest in their country, and that's one way of doing it. So that's something I'm very big in pushing, and I'm glad to hear the minister say that he was looking at that. We haven't funded CIDB in it must be over 5 years now, to the level where they could actually be giving these business loans.
Right.
There's been some bad experiences there, but we can't let that stop us from going forward. Let's deal with those, but let's move forward as well.
Right.
What I want to see for Bordentown, and I think a lot of people agree, is a lot of the sort of more low-key establishments, bed and breakfasts, ecotourism. We don't want Bordentown to become, or I don't want to see it become another 7 Mile Beach. We already have that. Let's find something different and unique. Most of the undeveloped land in Cayman is up east now.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful how we do it. We have to be very conservation-minded when we do it. But I think that there's a huge untapped potential in the eastern districts. He gave us statistics. We have less than 400 beds in the eastern districts compared to the thousands on 7 Mile Beach, right?
Wow.
So that's the potential right there, that you could, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to get involved in tourism from that point of view, not just as a job, but as your investment for the future. Then this is the time to do it. But you have to impress upon the government what you need to be done in order to get there. And I'm encouraging everyone to participate in this process. I'm wholeheartedly supporting this process. Like I said, we may disagree on some of the finite detail, but the effort, I applaud and I'm supporting it.
So do you know what the next step is after the series of meetings that the ministry and department?
They will then produce a draft plan and present that to the country, and then move forward with that into, and I think they're very ambitious. They said that within the first year of implementing this plan, they want to accomplish 20% of the objectives. So, it seems like a real serious effort, and I know that the director of the Department of Tourism is very much on board with pushing tourism. I can see that she lives and breathes tourism.
Yes.
And I'd want to congratulate all of them for the hard work they've done so far.
Right.
And I appreciate them coming to Bordentown.
Okay. All right. So we heard a little bit there about government's tourism, the framework for a tourism plan, and we just heard Mr. Suku's thoughts on the district of Bordentown. He's an MLA for the Newlands area of Bordentown. So it's good to hear that that you fully support these plans. I'm sure listeners out there are happy to hear the same as well. So when is the next sitting of the Legislative Assembly coming up? I
think it's March 14th that we're back in. So
okay. Well, we want to encourage everyone to listen to Radio Cayman, of course, for live sittings of the sessions from the Legislative Assembly, and of course, if you have CIG TV at home on cable, as well as we have our YouTube channel. Got to give us a plug there. We carry the Legislative Assembly sittings live on our YouTube stream, which is CIG television. It's not hard to find for those of you who may have a phone, access to a computer. And of course, you can always go back and watch, because we do post them on our playlists on YouTube as well. So you can't say that you don't have ways and means of hearing and seeing and knowing what's happening in our country. It's from the government and parliamentary stance. Yep. Mr. Suku, it's we're going to wrap up here. Any final words for our listeners out there? Anything that you'd like them to?
What I'd like to do is make a plea. I actually have a WhatsApp group that I've created for Newlands.
Right.
It actually spans Savannah as well. A lot of people from Savannah are in there. But send me a WhatsApp, 925-2582, if you want to be added to that. I use it to communicate when my meetings are, or any issues that are being discussed, or anything that comes up with the community. That's a good way for us as a group of people to converse and talk about the issues. So 925-2582 if you want to be added to that. And just to say, it's a pleasure to be here again. The time always flies when I'm on here. And there must be some sort of time device hidden on this table, but
it's called life.
Yeah, but I look forward to the next one. I'm not sure if you'll be here because I know you're.
I'm only here for a week, okay. But I'm sure Mr. Connor will take good care of you, as he always does.
And just glad. Thank you for the opportunity, and to
it's
speak
been a
to
pleasure.
People, and I'll be sure to be back soon.
All right. Well, thank you too for our listeners who've tuned in this morning. We hope that you've gathered a lot of information that you didn't have before this show this morning. And of course, the whole goal for the record is to inform and educate, right? And that's what we like to do. Mm-hmm. So we thank you for being here with us, Mr. Saku. And that's it for me today here on For the Record. We wish you a wonderful and, of course, a very safe weekend. And we'll, hope you'll tune in again on Monday morning.